Hey everybody, and welcome to today's edition of Tech Bites. Before we get started today, if you have not taken the opportunity to watch last week's Tech Bites, I encourage you to do so. It was an interview that I did with my father, who's been in education for quite a while, and we talked about technology and education, teacher prep programs, things like that. So if you have not had the opportunity to watch that, I do encourage you to go back to next week and take a look at that interview that we did. Today, what I'd like to talk about on Tech Bites is kind of coming from an article, report, really, that Google put out fairly recently about education. It's a fairly lengthy report, and so I'm going to kind of take it apart in pieces over maybe the next couple of weeks and talk about some of the information that is in this report. But for today, what I would like to discuss with you are three trends that are driving the shift in education. So again, this kind of comes from the Google report, but I'm putting my own spin on it like I like to do. So there are, according to Google's report, there are three trends that are kind of driving a shift in education as we see it as of right now. And so let's talk about these three shifts. So the first shift is a rising demand for global problem solvers. And none of this is super earth-shattering, but it is something that we need to really think about as we are looking at designing lessons and activities for kids. Because what most employers are looking for, if you ask any employer really on the planet, what they're looking for are problem solvers. And so as we design lessons for kids, as we create educational opportunities for our students, are we really looking at ways to develop problem-solving skills in our kids? That is a huge piece to what it is that we need to be doing with our kids. You know, obviously we have standards that we have to meet. We've got curriculum that we work through, but as we're doing that, one of the most important things that we can keep in mind is the opportunity that we have on a daily basis to help create those problem-solving skills that students have and will need going into careers in the future. One of the things that we need to keep in mind also is that we are at this point preparing students for careers that don't even exist yet. And so really thinking about steering our kids towards universal problem-solving skills that they will be able to make use of regardless of the career or the field that they go into. The next of these shifts is the change in the skill sets required for work. So again, the skills that are necessary to do jobs are rapidly changing. I mean, even if you look at things like working at Walmart, most Walmarts have done away with pretty much all of their cashiers, and so the people that work the front end at Walmart are really there to troubleshoot computer issues. They're there to troubleshoot things that go wrong with the machines, and so it's a vastly different job than it was 5 years ago to become a front end worker at a retail store. One of the things that is rapidly changing is the world of engineering. They've been saying for several years now that a student that goes into college to obtain an engineering degree, everything that they learn in the first year of their 4-year program is obsolete by the time they're in their 3rd year of their program. So again, it's not about creating students who have a head full of knowledge of content. It's about creating students who know how to solve problems and know where to go to find the information that they need to be able to access the YouTube or technical journals, things that they need in order to solve a problem, rather than just a head full of basic knowledge. So as we are working with our students, things like research skills, how to find information, where to find information, how to validate information, how to identify whether or not something that they find on the internet is worth what it is supposed to be, those are important skills that we need to be working with our students every day. So the third shift is just the shift to a mentality of lifelong learning. Again, with things changing so rapidly, we cannot be stuck in what we know today and expect to function 20 years from now with that same knowledge or with that same skill set. So being able to show our kids that we as educators are constantly learning, we're constantly improving our craft, we need to be able to shift our mindset at the same time that we're shifting our students' mindsets. We as teachers, just like with the whole connection to the engineering degrees, the things that I was taught when I went through college, they are obsolete at this point, or at least they should be. One of the things that I had to do in my education to become a teacher was take a competency course on technology. And the competencies that I needed to pass with technology were I needed to know how to run a reel-to-reel movie projector. I needed to know how to run a film slide projector. I needed to know how to use a microfiche machine. I needed to use an overhead projector. Those were the technology tools that I needed to know when I started my career in education. Now, if I were still operating under that same mentality and trying to use an overhead projector in my classroom, it would look a little strange. But I will challenge some of you, just like I try to challenge myself, into thinking about how are we teaching things. Now, if I take, for example, if I am assessing students by giving them a set of multiple choice questions to read through and answer. If that's the way I'm assessing my students' learning, does it really matter the form with which I give them those multiple choice questions? And what I mean when I ask that is, what really is the difference between handing the students a paper worksheet with the questions on it versus giving them access to a Google form through their Chromebooks, or even going to something like a Kahoot or a Quizzes? The task is the same. The task is just regurgitation of knowledge that they've gained from reading something or listening to me talk. And just by changing the format, we're not necessarily changing what we are expecting of our kids. And so we need to be looking at ways to assess our kids by giving them a problem and letting them figure out how to solve the problem, and then how to present their solution to the problem. You know, when I was a technology teacher, I got quickly to the point where I stopped telling my students how I wanted them to present information. So I would give them a task. One of the things that I did with my 8th grade students back in that time was I gave them a challenge to explain whether or not social media is positive or negative. And I made them pick. They had to pick either social media is positive or social media is negative on our society, and they had to answer the question. Now, I could have spelled out, I want you to do research from 3 different sources, and I want you to make 5 points, and I want you to put those into a Google Slides presentation that needs to be 14 slides with transitions, and I didn't do any of that. I gave them the question. Now, I had already given them the skill set of how to create presentations like Google Slides, like Canva, like Prezi. I had taught them how to make video. I had taught them how to record podcasts. I taught them how to do blog posting. So I would give them the question, and then I would say to them, okay, so the question is social media positive or negative? Now, you are going to answer that question, and you are going to present your answer to that question in a week. You decide how you're going to answer that question. You decide how you're going to present your answer to that question so that it fits what you want to do. Now, and I would always say to them, like, don't pick the thing that you think is easiest. Pick the means of presentation that you think will get your point across in the best possible way. And so problem solving. They had to figure out how they were going to answer the question, and then they had to figure out how they were going to present their answer to the question. And so it gave them ownership over what it is they were doing and why they were choosing the presentation mode that they were choosing. And so as we go forward and shift in education, we need to look more at how we can put ownership on the students of how they answer the questions, how they find the information that they're trying to find, and how they convey that information to the audience in general. If these are things that you'd like to talk more about, obviously I'm here to help with that. I love lesson design. I love looking at ways to give students control over what they are doing in the classroom, and so I would love to help. Like I've said before, if you've got a lesson that you don't like to teach, let's work together and come up with a way to teach that lesson that you'll enjoy, your students will enjoy, and they will be engaged. Not engaged necessarily with the tool, but engaged with the content in such a way that I've seen it so many times, I can't say it enough. The best classroom management strategy is student engagement, and you get those kids connected and working on something that they're interested in working on. Your classroom management becomes so much easier. You've got kids who are on task and doing what they're supposed to be doing without you having to walk around and keep them focused on the multiple choice questions that you have in front of them that they're really not that interested in. So I hope you guys have a great week. And again, if you would like to talk more about strategies for engaging your students in technology to create those problem solver thinking mentality students that we're talking about, reach out to me. You can reach out to me in the ways that you can always reach out to me: email, phone, in person. You know where I am. I look forward to working with you. Have a great week.